So let's look a little bit more at this density stratification that we mentioned in the previous module. Everybody knows what density is. It's how much mass you have crammed into a given volume. So high density means a object is very heavy for its size. And early Earth experienced gravitational separation, which means high density material like iron and nickel got pulled into the center, and less dense material formed concentric spheres around the core. So if you look at the Earth's internal structure, then you can describe it in terms of chemical composition or physical characteristics and physical properties. So here you have a conical section through the Earth showing the ocean and the land, and you have crusts which are either under land, which is much thicker here, or under the ocean, which is much thinner. We will see that in a bit. And the crust is basically made of igneous rock. It's either granitic or basaltic, depending on whether it's the ocean crust or the land crust, and its densities and colors are different as well. Then you have the lithosphere, which is rigid. It's brittle, so it breaks if you bend it too much, which is what forms the continents that are floating around on the so-called asthenosphere, which is hot and plastic, so it flows like molasses. The lithosphere goes down to about 100 kilometers, and asthenosphere goes down to 700 kilometers. Below that you have the mesosphere, which goes down to 2,885 kilometers, and you have the outer core, which is the liquid part of the core, and you have the inner core, which is the solid, rigid part of the core with iron and nickel. So you can think of this three structured internal Earth's structure here as core with this inner and outer core, mantle, which goes all the way to the bottom of the crust, and then you have the crust, right? So the layers by chemical composition. Crust is low density. It's mainly made of silicate material. Mantle is iron and magnesium silicate materials, and core is high density made of iron and nickel. By physical properties, as we said, you can think of it as lithosphere, asthenosphere, mesosphere, outer core, inner core. Lithosphere, we already mentioned, is rigid. It's cool. It's not very hot. It includes the crust and the upper mantle. So it's about 100 kilometers thick from the surface. And you can already see here that the oceanic crust is basaltic. It's higher density and thinner, 8 kilometers thick, whereas the continental crust is lower density by almost 30%, and it's thicker by several times, so it's 35 kilometers thick, and the lithosphere is floating, or continents are floating on top of the asthenosphere. So this is another way of looking at the internal structure of our Earth's internal composition.